Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for the 23rd of May, 2016. Let's start the tour off today with a look at the long paddock site from the Bureau of Meteorology in Australia, coming from the Queensland government. What this basically shows is the SOI, the Southern Oscillation Index values, and we are looking to see whether they are strongly positive or strongly negative, or maybe somewhere in between. And you can see that the daily contributor for now, positive 8.75, and that has made the last 30 days come up quite a bit from, you can see back here in April, minus 19, and now we're only at minus 2, and we will probably end the month of May on the positive side, which is, it's been a while. So what does all of that mean? Well, generally speaking, it's lower pressure over in the western Pacific, over around Australia, higher pressure over in this region of the tropical Pacific, and so your net flow of air is generally from east to west, and that increases the trade winds, helping to mix the waters here and really start to strengthen the coming La Nina pattern. So there you go. It's all connected. And the anomaly map for today shows that pretty well. We do have this continuing blue ribbon of colder than normal water along the equatorial Pacific. Meanwhile, the main development region in the Atlantic stays warmer than normal, colder than normal up here in the northeast Atlantic. And then we do have this area here in the subtropics that's warmer than normal. So it's going to be an interesting season, one that has mixed signals for maybe prolific development, and others that say, well, we may have higher pressures than normal over the Atlantic because of all of this cooler water in the North Atlantic, and you do have this area of warmer water in the subtropics, and sometimes we've seen that lead to sinking air down here in the deep tropics. These are terrible arrows, but basically this is going to be a tricky forecast because there's no one overwhelming signal except one, I think you could say, and that would be this growing La Nina that says, oh yeah, the Atlantic's going to be very, very busy. And so I think a lot of the forecasts calling for an average season to maybe slightly above average makes sense. But I remember 2013 and how that season was supposed to be very, very busy, and it was anything but. So you just never know. But we can at least monitor this stuff on a weekly and sometimes a daily basis. And one of those tools is the equatorial temperature anomaly in the subsurface, and this continues to amaze me. All of this very cold water, most of the heat content now completely eradicated from the tropical Pacific, and you have all of this cold water lurking beneath the surface. Surface is here, and so this goes down to around 240 meters or so. Very thick area of colder than normal water, and that's going to eventually all be up here along the surface. You can see it's done so already in the eastern Pacific, getting ready to in the central and western Pacific, and the La Nina will be coming on presumably, probably moderate, and maybe even strong. We'll have to wait and see. But all the pieces seem to be in place for this to happen, and we certainly won't be in an El Nino pattern, and probably not even a neutral pattern during the peak of this year's hurricane season. So this 10-day time period, of course, it's the East Pacific hurricane season now. That began on May the 15th. We still have a few days left before the Atlantic gets going, but nevertheless, during this 10-day time period, we still have a few areas in the western Atlantic basin that have developed over the past 100-plus years, much more so in the Southeast Pacific. Again, I would assume that the season for both basins just begins on May 15th. But that's a story for another day, not for me to decide. Really nothing going on in the Pacific, no areas of development that I have seen yet. We can take a look at that real quick at the National Hurricane Center site. No disturbances right now, and that's probably going to be the case for a while until we get a more favorable upward motion pattern through this region, which is lacking as of the current date, what we call a favorable MJO. That hasn't really come through yet. Maybe later on in the month, towards the 1st of June, we'll see something. We'll have to wait and see. So looking at actual sea surface temperatures, remember we are looking for 26 degrees Celsius, which is this blue color here, or higher. Everything to the right of that on the scale is warm enough for tropical cyclone development, presumably. And most of the Gulf is at that magic temperature. Only these purple areas in here still remaining below the 80 degree Fahrenheit or 26 degrees Celsius. 26C is actually something like 79.5 degrees Fahrenheit, but we'll round it up to 80. Off the east coast of the United States and in the western Atlantic basin, very warm Gulf Stream snaking its way through. Water temperatures just offshore and near shore warming up nicely. So hopefully by Memorial Day weekend, areas from, well, even the northern Outer Banks up here still pretty cold. Some of those water temperatures still showing up in the blues there. And let's see what that would be, 13, 14, 15 degrees Celsius. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. So let's call it, maybe Rodanthe to Hatteras, Ocracoke, all the way down through Wrightsville Beach, Myrtle Beach certainly. And then from Charleston on down along the coast of Florida, your Memorial Day surf temperatures are looking really good. Low to mid-70s. And of course in South Florida and anywhere near the Gulf Coast states on the west side of Florida, water temperatures in the 80s. So it's just going to take a while for the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast to warm up, which we would expect. It'll get there, and by the time we get to July 4th, it should be at least warm enough to get in. Although, again, I like it in the mid-80s. That's what I prefer, but take what you can get. Wanted to show you this. This is the ocean heat content for this time period, roughly today. It was valid yesterday. And this comes from the NOAA AOML site and the Hurricane Research Division folks. And this shows us how much energy is in the water. It's another way to look at it. And you see sort of this Mickey Mouse feature here. Interesting. Sponsored by Disney, maybe. This is representative of very high ocean heat content. And this is no fooling around. All jokes aside, this represents a lot of energy already in the Western Caribbean. And what I like to do is compare to last year. And you can see that in most times of the year during the season, the Western Caribbean is going to be the high heat content area, and that was the case last year. But comparing last year at this time to today, you can see there are some pretty stark differences. Last year we were lacking the heat content through here. This year it is there, and it fills in the rest of the Caribbean as well. So it's a little bit ahead of schedule, the heat content values, that is, for this time of year, but nothing too alarming. We don't have anything to take advantage of it just yet. But notice your heat content starting to come up here. Pretty much anything in this shaded area always catches my interest as having just a little bit more overall ocean heat content than anywhere else. And basically what that is, just to refresh you real quick, the 80-degree isotherm would extend pretty deep into the water instead of just at the skin. So the deeper that 80-degree line runs in the ocean, the more upper ocean heat content you have. It's like when you blow across the top of a cup of coffee and you stir it up with that and you try to cool it off. Well, the coffee is still very hot below, so what do? You blow the top, you drink it a little bit, sip it because it's just cooling off, but underneath there's plenty more hot coffee where that came from. So you could call that upper ocean coffee heat content, I guess. And it's kind of the same thing in the Atlantic and elsewhere in the world, that the deeper that warm water is, the more energy is available when something comes along to churn it up and upwell water. It's not upwelling colder water, it's upwelling even more warm water and more energy from that. So yeah, last year to this year, kind of interesting how we're ahead of schedule, it seems. All right, let's leave the tropics and check out the severe weather potential. It is May after all, and we do have the threat of severe weather this week. It's in the classic tornado alley areas that we would expect in the Central Plains states here, with the highest area in Texas and parts of Oklahoma and southwest Kansas. This is today's forecast. So if you're in that area, you probably know this already, and we'll certainly pay attention. So just a reminder, all right? Tomorrow, what we call the Day 2 outlook, much more of your, this is really your very classic look here in Oklahoma, Kansas, extreme northern parts of Texas, and then up into Nebraska, southwest Iowa. And basically where I've highlighted in the red, that's the heart of Tornado Alley, and there's going to be a lot of chasers out there. I expect more photogenic tornadoes. We've seen a lot of those this year. A lot of research going on out there from the Center for Severe Weather Research out of Colorado, and Dr. Josh Warman and Dr. Tim Marshall. I believe Tim Marshall's a PhD. If not, then congratulations, I just made you honorary. But there's a lot of work going on out there, as well as tour groups. I saw some blog posts sort of applauding that it brings money to the economy out there, and there are more and more responsible tour groups, kind of like there are eco tours. Of course, you still have your dingbats and your yahoos who get out there and seem more like they're trying to tame the Wild West than truly show respect for nature and photographing it from a safe distance, without yelling and screaming. There's still some of that going on, unfortunately, but it's interesting that this is sort of our own brand of ecotourism, or what we could call weather tourism, tornado tourism in the nation's midsection. Hopefully that won't ever become the case for hurricanes. When that happens, we have a problem. Why? Because you usually don't go into the tornado. If you do that, that's got a bad ending associated with it. Whereas with a hurricane, you pretty much have to be in it to witness it. And that's where we come in. We bring you the live look using technology. Nobody's in harm's way, and you can watch and experience things from the comfort of your own home. So there you go. There's my rant for today. Day 3, things calm down a little bit, at least in the 3-day outlook, but I would suspect that as we get closer and more data comes in, that this will change. But the bottom line, really, over the next several days, things are going to be active in the areas where we would expect them to be this time of year. A few more tornadoes than we've seen lately, probably more hail, more flooding thunderstorms. So this is a pretty active period here. So just a heads up on that. Remember, I like to talk about lower 48 weather impacts that are not necessarily related to the tropics. Again, just trying to keep people weather aware. All right? Well, that's it for me for today. Nothing really brewing in the tropics to talk about. So I'll probably just wait until Wednesday, take a day off. Nothing to talk about tomorrow. So I'll be back on Wednesday. Have a good rest of your Monday. Again, for HurricaneTrack.com, I am Mark Sutta. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again on Wednesday.